good, then we can get started. So we'll call the Committee of Public Safety to order, and it shows all aldermen are here except Alderman Smith, who let us know that he wasn't going to be attending. Approval of the previous meeting. I'll make a motion.
Second.
All approved.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Okay. Yeah. Unfinished business, new referrals for consideration. Captain Richardson's here. We just wanted to discuss the ambulance billing rate change.
Chief Richardson.
Chief Richardson. I'll get it.
All right. So basically, what we're kind of looking at, I'll show you guys. We'll have a little spreadsheet. So basically, what this is these are 2017's rates of comparable ambulance companies in our area. They call them competitors, but they're really kind of they're really.
Is this the one you?
Yeah, it's still the same thing. Okay. They're really not actual competition where they compete with the fire department, but you can't raise rates up over what your competitors are. So basically these rates right here is what we're looking at, is going up to, these are 2017 fee schedule rates for us. So basically you can see that there's a bump up in your ALS2s. So ALS2s would be where you dispense 3 or more medications. ALS1s would be a chest pain patient, abdominal pain, and trauma patient. BLS would be a BLS emergency call. The PI charge is new to our fee schedule. Where this comes into play is, for example, if we respond and intercept a volunteer ambulance coming into the hospital, then our paramedic can offload onto their ambulance and continue treatment in their ambulance on the way to the hospital. If we actually make the scene, then a lot of times they'll transfer the call over to us, and then it would go to we would transport and bill like we normally would inside the city. The rates that we're suggesting, where this comes into play, is Medicare and Medicaid will only pay so much. This isn't something that we're putting onto the burden of our citizens or anybody else. It's an insurance reimbursement. If Medicare says that you can bill X, that's what they're going to pay. You can bill $1 million for the call. They're only going to pay what they're going to pay. And Medicaid's the same way. These really impact our motor vehicle crashes, billing the auto insurance. That's where we'll see an increase, and some of your private insurances we'll see a bolster there, because all insurances will pay for certain things differently. Some will pay for treat and release, others won't, and that's what we're trying to catch up on. The estimated increase in last speaking with the biller, just based on this rate, could be anywhere between 20 and 30,000. We could see an increased revenue. Obviously, the busier we are, the more that revenue is going to be generated. We are seeing where we're going outside of the city more on mutual aid requests to other ambulance agencies, and those are things that it's a new thing to us. So we're kind of going there. And then the mileage is just a standard rate mileage. Obviously, our farthest would be the Pennsylvania line on a Barnum Road, and that's a 6-mile trip.
That's $15 per mile.
That'd be $25 per mile.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right. That's not cents. That's dollars.
Dollars.
Oh,
yes.
Okay. That's higher than the
Kim,
federal rate.
Do you have to meet or intercept with Bradford? We were talking about Bradford having an increased presence.
Yeah. The only way that usually if they're coming over with a 2-man crew and something happens, and we've had this happen before with for example, City of Salamanca, we've intercepted them on 86 for a patient that they were transporting cardiac arrested. Okay. So now we go out and intercept them on the expressway and then put our medic on board to help and then bring them in. So those are kind of the calls. And we're seeing probably, we do 2 or 3 of these a year 5 years ago. Now we're probably 20 to 25 we're doing a year now. So, and it's probably going to increase, but not tremendous. I would say this is just making sure that we're getting reimbursed for the work that we're doing. As of right now, we're not.
Right. And as you said, Medicaid is not going to pay any more than their base rate.
No, they're only going to pay what they're going to pay.
So, I guess, going off of that, these increases, I guess my only concern is the increases to this, will Medicaid and Medicare still cover these particular increased rates? Because I'm not necessarily in favor of increases that, further burden our tax.
Sure, and what they're going to do is, so let's say, and I don't know off the top of my head what the actual ALS2 is on Medicare. Let's say Medicare, but you could charge them the $1,350. They're only going to pay what the $350 that they always have paid, and then anything off the cost of that is what we call as write-offs. That's why when you see like ambulance statements, you'll have this much was billed out, and then this much was recuperated, and then you have like a write-off line where there's no way you're going to recoup those costs.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, but doesn't that, the variance, so if you charge $1,000, Medicare, Medicaid only pays $300, doesn't that $700 get billed to the individual then?
What they'll do is they can bill it, and then if they pay what they can and whatever they can't pay, we do what's called a charity care write-off, and then they write those off, and it's kind of like money that we reimburse back. Well, it would be just an accounting item that you reimburse the rest of that call back to the community, to the person.
So it's not like just like another medical bill that would go to collections if you
Well,
don't
I
pay
guess
it.
that's my question, right?
does
that lead,
Yep.
exactly,
Yeah.
does that go to collections?
No, we do not take
Okay.
anybody to collections. We actually have an attorney that we use, Chellia's firm out of Buffalo, and we've gotten more success out of using them because the attorney will work with them, whereas a collections agency, we know that they're just going to generally kind of badger them, so to speak.
So, Chief,
Yep.
what percentage of your calls would be considered private pay or people that don't have insurance?
We're high Medicare, high Medicaid. So go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, because if they don't have insurance, isn't that where, say, someone at the hospital or someone helps them apply to get Medicaid, Medicare? Or
That
do
could
they
be on
just-
their end, but as far as like us, that we don't have a guarantee or whatever, the billing company will bill the call, and then whatever they pay, whatever they don't pay will become a write-off on that
Because I know,
statement.
I know of a lot of young people that don't have insurance right now, and a lot of other folks that are kind of in that donut hole or too young to be on Medicare.
Mhm.
So, I was just curious, the percentage of people that just aren't insured,
Right.
that won't be able to pay.
And that information I can get, because we do third-party billing. The city used to do the billing, and we kind of farmed it out to professional
Right.
ambulance billing in Buffalo, and they have most of the agencies around here is what they do. And the nice thing is a lot of the billing questions, they take care of that for us because they're the experts. That's what they do instead of the firefighters answer for that
Yeah,
question.
that is just
Yeah.
a curiosity thing.
All right, just from an accounting standpoint, again, please, Chief, forgive me, I'm trying to wrap my head around how this works. So, a fee for $1,000, previously, you get reimbursed from Medicaid or Medicare, $300, it costs then $700 bill would go to the individual.
Yes, it could, yes.
So now, if the rate were to go up to $1,300, the $300 still is the same amount. We get no more from Medicaid or Medicare.
Right.
But now a $1,000 bill would go out to the
It
resident.
could be.
Okay.
Now,
Just using round
Yep,
numbers.
yep, and that's why the number, if you were to take our call volume before, let's say 2017, and apply that number, it would be a huge jump. And why I quoted the 20 to 30,000 is because that was taken like our motor vehicle accidents, stuff that you're gonna get that, now you're gonna get that money. You know, those are allotted for that
I
cost.
see.
John, I can give you an example. I had an older individual in town that had to transport his wife.
Yeah.
The ambulance took her, and he received the bill. He called me up, and I said, I got a hold of Chief Bell at the time. He said, we have a form they fill out, and they didn't have to pay anything.
Oh, wow.
Over and
Okay.
above and that's what the Chief was talking about. What'd you call it, Tim?
It's a charity care form.
Yeah.
And they
Yeah.
keep track of that to
Yeah.
see how much, because it's kind of like the city donating back to its citizens, that they're doing the write-off. We're a non-predatory biller, those types of things so you can write that out. It's an accountability thing. That way we're accounting for everything that we bill out. We're able to show Medicare reimbursed this, the payment was this, and then whatever was in the middle was written off.
Do you have to meet certain financial guidelines to be eligible for the charity care form? Or is that open to
Anybody that would feel distressed by paying that type of bill, they fill out, and truth be told, the biller, a lot of times, they mail that form to them, and you'd be surprised how many people don't take advantage of that program.
So can I just ask a question?
Yeah.
Aren't we telling everybody in the city that if you take a ride in an ambulance, don't sweat it, like you don't have to pay it, like?
Well, and there's,
I mean,
they
how
try
does
to
that,
work with them.
how is that not like?
Right, because you're only gonna get certain amount, like, for example, Medicare and Medicaid, they're gonna pay certainly they do pay less than what your Blue Cross Blue
Yeah.
Shield and those types.
So people who have Blue Cross Blue Shield, like, I don't want to say normal insurance, but they have an employer-sponsored insurance plan.
Yep.
Usually those reimburse more of that cost.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. And they have a
Okay.
fee schedule too that they'll reimburse up to
A certain amount.
For example, Medicare won't, let's say we have a diabetic patient that has low blood sugar. We get there, we start an IV, we give them a medication that reverses that blood sugar. Medicare won't pay for a treat and release. However, Blue Cross and Blue Shield, they will absolutely pay for that just because you're keeping them out of a hospital in theory. That if we treat them on scene and release them with medical control, then they're out of the hospital. So you get a bill that's X, which could certainly be cheaper than an emergency.
Gotcha.
Could you ask the billing company if they could just kind of give us an idea of how much we lost last year?
Sure.
Just, so we have kind of a ballpark.
Lost or wrote off?
Wrote off, lost.
And just so there's no confusion, the city only recognizes the actual checks, the cash that comes in. So he may bill $1 million.
Yeah.
We don't recognize that billing as revenue.
Yeah.
We recognize revenue once it comes to the clerk's office or wherever. So I'm not involved, or I'm not. I won't say I don't care, but I don't care about the write-offs or because I don't have to alter our revenue. Our revenue is just what we get in the door.
Right, but it would be interesting to see what the billing.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah.
Shows up.
And that's not a difficult thing to get.
Okay,
Does,
thank you.
where Medicare, Medicaid has a fixed payment to us, do insurance companies, does this increase? Will insurance companies, like Paul said, pay a percentage? Does that mean that we'll get more potentially from the insurance companies?
They increase the fee schedule. So and it does, healthcare will outpace what insurance will reimburse.
Okay.
So they may, there's certain lobbying that goes on at the state level for Medicaid and the federal level for Medicare.
Right.
But they'll try to, they do revals where they'll try to get that revenue stream to increase, but sometimes it's.
But
it's
for
difficult to get
private
done.
health insurance
Privates
companies,
will pay
Blue Cross,
certain-
Blue Shield would pay more if our fees go up.
They're still gonna stick to
There's a
that.
fee-
They're
there's
gonna
a
pay
fee
what they're
there's
gonna
a
pay.
fee
And
structure.
the fee schedule would be like that type of call, so like an ALS2 or ALS1, that marries up with what they charge, or with, our charge with their charge. And right now, that's where that paramedic intercept comes in, is that right now we don't have that built into the city fee schedule.
I see.
And that is something that without having that in there, the biller can't bill that call for us. So that kind of will shore up some of that
I see.
revenue that we are missing right now.
Whose suggested rates are these? Is it yours?
The billers.
Oh, the biller. Okay.
Yeah, and
Okay.
the biller has access to, they have access to competitor or comparable bills.
Yeah.
So it's not like the city of Olean is billing way more than,
City
and these are 2017's rates.
Yeah. Okay.
And we can't just go up to 2000, because you're gonna, you're outpacing what your competitors are. They're not competitors per se, but they're what your comparables are in the area.
Yeah.
So for example, like Allegheny EMS, Randolph's another comparator. So Randolph, Allegheny, Ellicottville, Great Valley, Salamanca Fire Department, those would be our comparables.
So
of who they use.
Blue Cross Blue Shield is going to pay a percentage, right?
Or they're gonna pay a flat fee.
Or a flat fee. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And every year they might raise theirs slightly every year, where
Yeah.
we're back
And then
however
you'll see
many.
that less, like let's say it was, I'd have to know for sure what they're gonna bill out exactly. But as that number goes up, you're gonna see your
And the-
I guess, dead money go
And
down.
the suggested rates are 2017, or are what our actual
Yeah,
rates
there
are?
are, there are 2017.
No, what are the actual? Our current rates are from how old?
They would be 2015 or 14.
Okay, gotcha. So we're
Yep. We're playing
Oh.
catch up a little bit.
yeah.
So the current rates are based on 2015. Was the last time we updated them?
I believe that would be one.
And-
I'd have to research
Oh.
that for sure. But the
Yeah.
suggested rates that
I
are there
see.
would be 2017
I
rates.
see.
Yeah. Well, and I think we're handicapped too because we're in a rural area.
Mhm.
The bigger the city, the better the rate. So that kind of handicaps us too.
Which is why we get more for mileage.
Well, and that, truth be told, that's probably where you're gonna see it is, for example, the auto insurance that we talked about, and your Blue Cross Blue Shield, and I hate to target them, but your other private insurances,
Yeah.
but your mileages are gonna be, it's up to what they're gonna pay for mileage, so you're gonna see that increase too. Again, it all depends on our volume, and we've been busier.
So where do we go from here then? How do we proceed if
A
we want?
resolution? We'll put on a
Okay.
resolution.
Everybody.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm cool with
Anybody
this.
have any hesitation?
I think it just gets us up to current rates.
Yep.
Well, and all in all, unless our rate structure is up there, if there is increases in the rate and we're below that, they're gonna pay the smaller fee.
We're losing
So the
that.
lower fee, yeah.
Yep. Okay, thank you, Chief.
Yep.
Okay, moving on. FEMA Assistance to Firefighters Grant for acquisition of a brush fire truck.
Yes, Chief Richardson has gone out and found a potential avenue for us to get another vehicle. So, Chief?
Yep, what this is the Assistance to Firefighters Grant. This is the big firefighters grant that you hear of that gets pushed out as far as appropriations. This year the appropriations are for $350 million across the country. If you ever want to research them, it's always a year behind. So even though we're in 2020, we're in the 2019 grant cycle. So how this grant works is because we're below 20,000 people, it's a 5% match. This is a 5% match. What this is for a brush truck. We've seen a lot of times when we go on River Trail, we go on the levee system with mulch fires in the city. That this type of truck can pump and roll. So if we get a fire that's up on the levees down over the bank, we have to basically hike in with water extinguishers to extinguish that fire, or get close enough to pull a hand line off a pumper. This vehicle could get up on the levees through the gate and can pump and roll and go right down through. Or if we have somebody that's down on the river trail, then this vehicle will have a rescue litter attachment to it where we can drive the vehicle to the patient instead of, basically putting them in the back of a pickup truck or something like that where we can have them secure. So we've gotten 3 quotes, and the lowest range was $99,000, the highest range was $125,000. The 5% match would be $6,250. And now that being said, we would still go to bid if we're awarded the grant. So you would go to bid, and you have a certain time frame to complete the grant, and then so this could be, up to $125,000 was the highest quote that we had received. So it adds to it really adds, because with the completion of North Union Street in 2017, we went from around 35 grass forest, brush, and special outside fires up to over 80 in 1 year. So we had almost a 40 to 50 call increase because of the rain gardens and because of the center meeting.
For those of you who've been around a little while, back in the day, they had a vehicle that was called Little Mo. And that was stationed out of, when this was number 3 fire hall, down where Central is now. And that was considered a brush type vehicle. It had a turret on the top that could be used as a cannon, or could flip and spray water out for fires like this. So we would be going back to
Crowd suppression.
yeah, basically. We'd be going back to.
That's what it is in Grand Theft Auto.
But we thought this was a great way to
Little Mo.
improve our
It's the cheat
our
code.
fleet, and for if we can get a fire vehicle for $6,000,
Yeah.
I think that's
No brainer.
Yep.
so
And these
what
are
we're
like-
asking, what we're asking tonight, or it'll be next week, is permission to seek the grant.
And Carrie's gonna help you with the
Yes.
grant, right?
Yep. The big thing, talking with Carrie Stephen, the big thing is that with the PL, the grant committee, so 50% is basically entering city data, and then 50% is formulating our narrative. What goes in the narrative would be things like your PL that states that, hey, you have the money there, so you're not chasing it down once the grant comes in, and all of a sudden you're in a hurry to get legislation passed to do this, where they like it where it's all neat and tidy, and
Yep.
and you display the need is what the narrative does. So Carrie's working with me on displaying the need.
Sweet.
And all the city, just to give a kind of a background, Fred's helped me, Greg Piota's helped, because the assessor has to tell you how much property is residential, how much is industrial commercial, how much is agricultural, and then Carrie, code enforcement, and then plus researching all our records is pretty exhausting. It's a federal application.
Great. Any other questions? Okay, so we'll be looking forward to a resolution on that. Okay, C is discussion replacement, the plan for the replacement of engine 41. Yeah, this is Chief Richardson.
This is something that's on the horizon that we thought should be out there as far as what direction we're heading. Engine 41, that's presently the reserve pumper out of Fire Station 1, so when one of our trucks goes out of service, this truck comes into service. It's a 1996. The present frontline fire vehicles that we have, as far as the engine at Central is 12 years old, the engine at Station 1 that serves frontline is 9 years old. Just to kind of give you a recommendation, NFPA states that a vehicle should remain in service for 10 years as a frontline primary vehicle, 10 years as a reserve, and then should be retired. Now, is that really realistic at times? I'll leave that for you folks, but at the end of the day, we're at 12 and 9 years. Now, Engine 41's replacement is not something, it takes over a year to build a truck, and it probably would take the next 4 or 5 months to develop the specs on a vehicle. So it's a 365-day build time before you even start to get into like performance bonds where they don't deliver the vehicle by then. So it's a lengthy process, and what we're kind of looking for is permission to start the specifications with a plan to go to bid sometime in September or October. We just wanted you guys to be aware that this is out there, that we, this truck we're leaning on is a 96, and I would certainly take you to the fire station to show you its condition.
What was the recommendation of 10 years and 10 years was from
That's
the...
NFPA, National Fire Protection Association.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Which
Yep.
does
That's our standards.
right, that's our standards. Does that code mandate us to have to do that by that timeline? Like,
It's a recommendation.
okay, gotcha.
Yep. It's a guideline.
We talked about this in Fleet last week, and we thought we would bring it to your attention so that you can consider have future discussions and on how we're going to fund this vehicle if we decide to go that way.
So what is the current situation then, from a fleet perspective? What would this have to be additional funding? This isn't part of the fleet management budget, right? The fleet money?
This is about a $500,000 to $600,000 item, so we're probably looking at.
You guys don't have that in that line item? I'm just
Not today.
Fleet management's doing great.
killing it.
So that's why we wanted to bring it to your attention, so we can start to have discussions on how we could fund this replacement.
So this isn't the ladder truck we just bought a few years ago,
No.
right? That was like $1 million, wasn't it?
Correct.
Okay, so
Yeah,
this is
would be
not
a fire
that.
engine, it'd be a pumper.
Okay.
And like the mayor said, you're looking between, we've got comparables from 3 departments around here that range anywhere from 740 to 550.
Okay.
And that's where the current, of the type of truck that we would need would be a fire engine.
Okay.
So it's not the ladder truck, it's a little bit smaller of a vehicle, but
Yep.
they're pricey.
Yeah.
So depending on the timing of it, how it works out, we're really not affecting this budget or the next budget. It's probably 3 budgets from now.
Where's the truck that was designated?
Yeah, if you went to, let's say, however long the bid process was, if you released the bids in, let's say, September, give them a couple months to do the
5%
bids and awarded the bids in November, it would be the following November before you ever took delivery. So it'd be the 21-22 budget.
Before we have to make a payment.
How many?
Okay, I got what you're saying.
How many engines do we have?
Right now we have 2 plus a reserve. So we have the engine 40 is based out of First Street, engine 42 is based out of Central, and engine 41 sits behind. So anytime a vehicle goes down for maintenance, then engine 40, it's the last yellow one we have left.
So this is currently the reserve?
Yes. Okay. Then and then what'll happen is then once we take delivery of the new engine 41, then engine 42 or 40 is going to go to reserve.
Is there any salvage value on something like this?
There could, it's all up to whoever takes it on trade. A lot of times they decommission them and put them as far as like construction vehicles.
Oh,
You'll
okay.
see them a lot of times where they'll go,
Yeah,
or
ladder
they'll
trucks.
go overseas.
Okay.
Is where impoverished countries.
So do we go to auction or do we usually trade?
That would all be up to you guys, just because they'll give you a value, and you may get more at auction than you would at trade.
Yeah.
Something this old, I don't.
We're not getting 100,000 from it?
No.
What's
No,
usually,
I think
Darn.
what's usually like the telltale on something like this, that's you're kind of like, hey, we need to do something? Like what kind of things start to happen with this sort of equipment?
Outside, well, a lot is the surface rust, and now you're starting to see impacts where we're having difficulty getting the truck into pump gear. So when it comes up, at times we'll have to get up underneath and hit the linkage to drive it from the transmission to the pump. And that's usually, if you're talking about rebuilding the pump, we do have a whole folder on what's wrong with that engine.
Mhm.
That, we could, and Mr. Donahue would probably be the best
Yeah.
source on that.
He's the one that could give you the information about the option.
I'm just curious, it's not.
And
you know,
very
I'm
familiar with
concerned
And to give you
about
some-
the specifics, but
And to give you some thought, like I think when we sold the ladder truck, we sent it to auction. If I remember correctly, it was like $2,500 we got at auction.
really.
Yeah. It was something. Yeah. No, whoever owns that roofing company or tree company made out like a bandit in that one.
Yeah. Well, you know, the other thing that I
We
think
thought about that.
Yeah.
We thought about which way to go, scrap
It's
it or-
actually out towards, we see, it's on, the old city ladder truck is out on 394 between Randolph and Kennedy.
Oh, really?
I had to go out there for my kid's soccer game, and it was sitting, we're like, holy cow, it was sitting out by a barn. Yeah, I don't know what they were using it for, but.
Weekend Warrior Roofing. That's
But, you know, I think the other
I've been on a
thing
couple of those.
for, you know, for the public to realize is that we have the three, even though the third one's not the greatest.
Right.
But we always have mutual aid, so if we did have a really, you know, bad fire like over in Buffalo,
Yep.
we always have mutual aid that they'll be there to help us.
Mhm.
Just so they know that, you know,
Oh, sure.
we're safe.
What's the next closest or the next oldest? I mean, what is the age difference between some of these trucks?
Yeah, you have, the ladder truck is a 2019, so we're good there. That's
Yeah.
like a 25-year purchase.
Good.
And then your frontline pumper out of Central is 12 years old. Station 1 is 2011, so you're at 9 years old. And then 96.
Good.
All right.
Okay, any other questions? Jason?
Oh, do we foresee any sort of grant type things for this?
Actually, I'm glad you reminded me of that. So going back to the FEMA grant, what there is FEMA will tell you, will kind of give you an idea of what is high, medium, and low priority. So under vehicles, only 25% of that $350 million can go towards vehicle replacement, and of that, fire engines are low. Brush trucks are high, so that's where we're targeting brush vehicle, or the brush vehicle hopefully it's coming in at the right time to do, because it's a higher priority item. Obviously with Australia, California, and the Northeast is not immune.
But we don't, so do you foresee by the time we have to purchase this, is there anything that might come up to
Possibly.
help pay for that?
Yeah, there's always that possibility, and we'll keep looking for
Yeah.
that. But I think, when did we get a pooper on a grant?
Yes, the engine, in 2008, we received the same grant we're applying for the brush truck. That's how we got the frontline pumper out of Central, was on an AFG. So, and we're past that time frame because they don't like to give it out to multiple things, but we're almost 11 years past when we received that truck on a grant.
Great. Any other questions?
One quick question that I meant to ask, Bill, the ambulance rates, have they been built into this budget or no?
No.
Okay.
Okay, moving on. Discussion about cat issues. I've had a couple people ask me different questions, and Mayor's going to just give us an update.
Well, we've been starting to get the calls, and Michiko basically takes care of the the calling and getting a hold of the cat nippers and the billings and all that. She had a conversation, and they won't get started before spring unless we all of a sudden starts warming up. Okay, and we have $2,000 remaining from the existing budget, and in the tentative budget that has been given to you guys, we included $5,000 in there to take care of more cat problems. So I don't have numbers. I can provide them the next time we meet. We can have the numbers on what we did, but we are getting calls. They are, like I said, there's been some treatments that we've done without our authorization that we're not paying for. We will pay per the agreement. Per cat is picked up and neutered and brought back. So Beachville does a good job on that.
So, Bill, how do you track those cats? That was one of the other questions that this person wanted to know. How do we know they did it? I mean, is there a picture of the cat? Is there?
Each cat that's billed, believe it or not, they give a name. And we're Neighbors will see the cats back in the area. They do clip their ear, so they know they've been neutered. But as for, do we get pictures? No. So they're providing us with that service. I guess we're taking them at their word that they're doing it. They're a reputable organization.
Do we receive any, so what their costs are, I don't know if they use Operation Pets or wherever they take the cats for the service. Do we get an invoice?
Yes.
From the actual place that
We get an
performed the?
invoice from the place.
Yes.
Not from
Not-
cat nippers.
yes.
Thanks, John.
Yeah.
We get an actual invoice from where
Okay.
they do the neutering.
Okay.
And that's where each will
Okay.
call them to verify, especially if there's, I'll give an example. There was different shots that were given, treatment given, and we said our agreement is we'll pay for the neutering. So the cat nippers were billed for the rest of it. So.
Well, I will say, and it is normal, right, that during kind of the spring months, the stuff starts to ramp up. But I know that the cat nippers were pretty active in Ward 5. And last year, when I talked to some of my residents, they noticed, that the things, the clipped ears, they noticed that the less activity amongst the cats. And I've noticed less in my neighborhood too. So I do think it's a long process. It takes a commitment. It's not just like boxing them all up and shipping them out. So it does take a number of years to take effect.
I think when we talked with them,
Still like that idea.
5 years or
Amazon.
better before we start seeing some real.
Can you guys fill me in a little bit on what cat nippers is and?
Cat Nippers is an organization who will come into the area and they will trap cats. It's what, trap, neuter, and release.
Vaccinate.
Yeah, they'll come in, they'll trap, vaccinate and neuter and release. They'll come in, they'll do the trapping. They'll scope out the area. They'll do some notices to the residents in the area that basically lock up your cats. We're going to be here. And so they'll trap these cats. They'll visually check them over to see if, number one, if they have a clipping on their ear, that they've already been neutered. They'll visually check them too to see if there's any, surgical scars or that's shown that way. Then they take them from here to the place we will do the neutering, and then they will bring them back and release them in the same area. So the idea is that by getting them neutered, that it'll start to reduce the colony.
So what studies have shown is that previously, and it was kind of this endless cycle that most municipalities fall into, where you just trap them and you take them to a shelter and you try to get rid of them. That creates what's called a vacuum effect. These animals can reproduce so quickly, you're never going to win at that game. It's unsustainable. But by fixing them and putting them back into the community, that hole, that vacuum never is created. They just slowly start to, the population dissipates. Usually it takes 3 to 5 years to see some big results.
I still think that part of the vacuum effect though is caused by the feeding. So like if there's no food source, the vacuum, there's nothing to fill because they can't sustain the population. So I still think something needs to be done about the people that just, like I've got neighbors that just dump bags of cat food outside, and if they see more cats, they'll dump more bags. So to me, it's like.
What would that fall under though? Would that be a code enforcement? Would that be a police issue? Like, I don't know. I'm just asking.
Yeah.
What would that fall under? I don't even know if
Feeding nuisance animals. I mean, it's like
it's on
don't
your,
step
it's
on the
on your property. Like,
don't
is
step
that-
on the grass. Like I don't know.
I
Well,
think
technically,
birds-
I don't
like
know, am I going to get in trouble for feeding the squirrels?
Right. I mean,
well, if you
And the birds?
like let's say you trap a skunk on your property, the DEC mandates that you have to kill it on site unless you have a permit to remove it, and you have to bury it below ground.
What?
Yeah.
What the hell?
Well, or you hire
We're
someone with a
feeding
permit.
cats. Why are we trapping skunks?
Well, I'm just.
Yeah. When are we gonna start killing the deer in the city?
Yeah.
That is that's
issue.
another issue.
Yeah, we
should
talked
be
about it, we haven't
revisited.
done anything.
Why are we neutering
Well,
the deer?
I
Why are we
can,
killing
I can give you a little bit. I can give you a little.
Because
report
cats
on
don't
the
have the
deer,
good flank
too.
stakes that
Have you
the
taken
back
that
straps
off?
on a cat.
There's no
has.
vacuum, there's no vacuum
Luckily,
effect,
no.
it's killing all these deer inside.
Traps.
Okay, any other discussion on our cat issue?
So now we made this public, if I get into cat problems, who do I call? Bill?
Yeah, call my office, yeah.
Call me, Chico.
Have your constituents.
Call
go
Kevin
out,
Doherty, he knows.
Yeah, if they have,
A1 Reynolds got great.
in all
Shepherd
seriousness,
races.
David, if you have people who feel they have a cat problem, especially with feral cats, then yes, call the office and we'll relay that to the cat nippers and get you on the list for them to,
And you're
come
not
down
allowed to
and-
use a crossbow in the city, right?
No.
Okay, just making sure.
But you can. You just have to have permission. You can only shoot within 250 feet of someone's home, and you have to have permission if you're within that range.
Okay.
And as long as we're on the
DC
subject, I
ordinance.
have had conversations with in reference to the deer population. I've had a conversation with, there's a guy by the name of Rockefeller that works for DEC. He's the one that came and did our presentation. Well, he just had a call from a individual out of Albany who she's looking to, she won't give me any guarantees or anything, but she's trying to get money allocated to different communities who have deer problems to, so they can put together studies on how to eradicate the problem, or how to get rid of the problem and that. So I haven't filled out the application yet, but
Haven't
we're
made it
moving
going up.
moving towards that.
The culling is coming.
Okay, the approval of committee reports, do we have none? Okay, now, do you want us to adjourn, go into executive session, or just go into executive session?
We have
You have to be in a meeting.
Gotta be in a meeting.
We're going,
I'll make a motion.
Second?
Second.
What are we discussing?
Personnel?
Personnel issue.
Personnel.
You're the personnel though, so you gotta step out.
Bye, Fred.
In favor?
Can you make that motion again? Thank you.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
All right.